Hello, and welcome to White Space, the weekly show where we look at interesting happenings in the data center world. And this week we've got some pretty exotic projects, some interesting news. But first of all, trips. I think, Peter, you've been to Dublin.
I have. There was an excellent show called Host in Ireland. It was co-located with the data center show in Ireland, in Dublin. And the general feeling there was of Ireland flexing its muscles and becoming more of a premier location for data centers. There were lots of angles to it. The first one of the more interesting ones being fibre. There's lots of new fibre coming into Ireland in the west. And another project I met which plans to route fibre from Dublin to Europe without landing in the UK first.
That doesn't have to be American backed, does it?
There was an American involved, it's true. And but people want route diversity, they said. Yeah. And at the moment, a lot of traffic has to go through Docklands and or Slough, which, there's lots of everything in there is duplicated, but on some level that's a potential single point of failure. We also heard from the Data Protection Commissioner of Ireland, who's attempting to raise the reputation of data protection in Ireland. In the last while, it's been seen as like a kind of one-stop shop where anybody who wants to get a soft touch on their data protection queries can approach it. And after the Max Schrems case and other things, they've decided to put more money into it, more staff, and a very impressive woman called Helen Dixon, who is attempting to be a sort of friendly, negotiating but still fairly rigorous face for data protection there.
And she now is going to decide whether Facebook can send basically European user data to America to be stored there, right?
Yeah, it's quite a responsibility.
Yeah. It's a big job, and it's going to set a precedent, and basically, a lot of things depend on it in terms of safe harbor.
Worth looking at.
Host in Ireland. Yes, and Bill, you've got a sort of like the last chapter of the long-running saga of a Paris Interxion data center.
Good question. I'm not quite sure it's the last chapter, but it's certainly chapter 3, part 3 in an ongoing series. I spoke to Fabrice Coquillot. Apologies if I got the pronunciation wrong. He was the managing director of Interxion France, and what was really refreshing and really quite pleasant, apart from the fact that he speaks English exceptionally well, was that the first thing he did was apologise to Interxion customers and the data centre industry as a whole, and also to the people who've been involved in the whole dispute. But the mistakes they made in setting up the data centre and the building problems they had. He was saying they got it wrong. They should have talked a lot more with the local residents to make sure that they got the information out. And he made some other interesting points that didn't come out in the information that we were given, neither by them or by anyone else. Which was one interesting thing is that since 1996 in France, you've had to place the generators for any data center inside the building, not on the outside of it. So there would be no noise from generators because you can't hear them. And he said they've done tests, and the actual noise level from their generators inside the data center is less than a domestic washing machine.
So he wasn't saying the data center is noisy, and you're apologising for that. He was just saying their communication hasn't been so good.
He was saying the communication about the whole. And I suppose when you look at it, there are companies such as Kisos, there are other companies that do this, but plan and build your data center for you. So, and they do all of that planning that for you. They just think in the planning part they got it wrong.
So if it's not the noise, what was the protest actually about?
Well, I think it was about two things mainly. It was the fact that the data center is right beside a row of houses. When you look out at it, you see this massive structure. And it's huge. It's just basically a big blank wall, and it's not very. It's not very nice, not very friendly. Secondly, there's something like 580,000 litres of diesel fuel stored on the planet. Now, the chances of anything like that, of that diesel going, erupting, is infinitesimal. You would literally have to be another terrorist attack, and that's not likely.
We've never heard about anything like that.
No, it's not likely. I have to say, fair dues to Interxion for coming on and being very, very honest and very open. I think we should be campaigning for new architecture for data centers. Maybe a grand design for data center. We should maybe do a competition.
Actually, yeah, from the point of architecture, nothing else. Because usually data centers are sort of big warehouses for servers.
Well, make them look different.
That brings us to some pretty impressive architecture, Max, doesn't it?
Oh, yes. So, you might be familiar with a company called Steelcase. They are the largest office furniture manufacturer in the world. They built this design center in the shape of a pyramid. And if you guys have been to Vegas, right? You've seen the pyramid there. It's something of a similar nature. It's a little bit shorter, but I think it's 7 floors overground, 2 underground, a giant pendulum in the atrium swinging between the points of sunrise and sunset. It's a very impressive building, but sort of like had some trouble about a decade ago, and they decided to sell it. They built it for 100 million. They sold it for, I think, 7.4. It wasn't a great deal, but they sold it to a property development agency, and for several years the building stood empty. And now it emerges that somebody's wanting to build a data center there, and if they do, it's going to be the most beautiful data center possibly in the US, like it is an impressive building. So
I'm seeing it as being like a little follow-up to Infomart. Infomart has a data center that built along the design of the original Crystal Palace in London.
Seriously?
Yeah, the original Crystal Palace, the Victorian Exhibition Centre.
Yes.
This one's based on the Great Pyramid. So every single landmark building in the world could be replicated as a data center.
So, and yeah, we're based in London, so we're particularly interested in the UK, and 2 very big announcements sort of last week and this week, right?
Yes. Over the weekend, we heard that Amazon has announced its first UK data center, and few details about it, but it's apparently somewhat motivated by the fact that you need to have data storing data. The end of safe harbour. Yeah, somewhat motivated by that. And then later in the week, Microsoft followed up with some of its own data centres in the UK as well. Mm-hmm. But these were then capped by its truly clever announcement in Germany, where Microsoft has 2 data centres in Magdeburg and Frankfurt. And it's useful that there are 2 because they can be linked together by a network within Germany itself, and the data all remains in Germany. But they've gone one step beyond local data by handing over control of, it seems, the entire data centres to T-Systems, the subsidiary of Deutsche Telekom. This means that if any US agencies, like the US courts or the NSA, want to attempt to reopen that debate about whether data held by US companies on European soil is subject to US law, or there isn't an extradition treaty for data. So, but that didn't stop them trying it in Ireland, of course, which is Microsoft is still fighting, and which must be the part of the motivation for this. If US agencies come to Microsoft and demand access to the customer data in these data centres, Microsoft can simply say, no, we have a contract here which says only T-Systems can decide on the access.
Right.
Yeah, just can't do it. Out of our hands.
Yeah, so a clever contractual answer to the end of the safe harbour, and one which I think will prove very popular across Europe.
Meanwhile, Intel has built a data center. It's an internal data center, so you can't move your servers in there. But interesting, they built it on the site of the old fab. So,
Right. Is that the first one?
I think so. Yes. At least it doesn't look like they've ever done this before, because they have this fab in Santa Clara, and it was sort of like it's right next to their headquarters, and they closed it down recently. And I mean, we've been to clean rooms, right? You can just see how perfect it is. You wouldn't have to do much to just like get, because it might even have raised floors already.
Right.
So literally, you just have to install some servers and you go. So they built a data center, and they claim that using Intel technology and free cooling and blah, 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 they have managed to take down PUE to 1.06.
Right. There's not a lot of other detail about it.
No. So we can say Intel claims, I sort of like, we would need to take a look at it, but on paper, it's better than Facebook, better than Google. It's pretty much more leading.
Yeah. But you're talking about repurposed data centers. Repurposing things into data centers and low PUE. I've got one with a PUE of 1.045.
Oh, wow.
And it's in a boat.
Now, tell us more about the boat.
Okay, the 1.045 is a trial run for a company called Nautilus Data Technologies, which wants to put data centers in barges. There are large barges which are used by the military and also by construction firms, and they apparently are perfect for putting data centers on. Assuming you can big enough to have about 800 server racks in a superstructure built on top of the ship. Below decks, you've got water cooling. That's the main plus of this. The water it is floating in is what it uses to cool itself, which helps get this PUE of 1.045. But it also allows it to do water cooling without using water. The water is all recycled back, and as this is in California, that is a big selling point there. So they're being it's been tested at a shipyard 20 miles from San Francisco, and the test went well. The first one is being built. It should by the end of the year be deployed. Not sure where, but somewhere on the coast of California.
Yes. Can you imagine like a multi-story, container ship loaded with data center containers?
Yes. I don't think it'll win any architectural prizes.
No, it's going to be ugly, but
but so beautifully efficient.
Yes. So that's this week, I think.
Right. That's us this week. Although we should say we've got a magazine out.
Here is our wonderful new
glossy magazine, coming out just in time for our annual London show, which happens this week. We'd like to see you all there.
Yeah.
We'll be there with cameras if you want to be in white space on location, so to speak.
Yes, come and see us in the media area, which is just outside of the theatres. You'll be seeing our wonderful speakers in.
Yes.
Our speakers, including Max, who has a session to chair all his own. I'll play us out, shall I, while you tell us what's going to be happening at the DCD Converged event in London.
Okay. So yes, if you can't make it to London next week, I mean, we're going to be very sad, but we're going to bring you all the news. There's going to be announcements from Vapor.io, there's going to be announcements from Primary Data, a couple more people. I mean, I'm obviously interested in storage. There's going to be sort of Tin3, Nimble, what's their names? Pure Storage, obviously, not without them. And if you can recognize the tune while I was speaking, let us know in the comments.
What website do they go to, or do we just let us know?
4d-dc.com.
There you are.